Welcome to the Joke Zero podcast, where we're going to discuss all things industry, indie filmmaking. This podcast this season is focusing on Joke Zero's first feature film, Plan B, which you can rent or buy. It's out everywhere you can rent or buy, which is Apple, Amazon, I don't know, your mom's secret movie account, wherever you want. And we're going to be talking to everyone who's been involved in the movie. And I'm really excited for our guest today. We have a very funny comedian. He's also an actor in the movie. He plays Antoine in the movie. We've got Anthony Moore on the pod. What's up, Anthony? How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How you feeling?
I was really excited to talk to you today because we're both from Philly. So we've got a lot of brotherly love. We got the Philly love going on in the podcast today. And Brandon, who is also here, our producer, our director, and writer, Brandon's also Philly adjacent. So I just wanted to know how you got your start in the industry in our hometown.
Well, the way I got my start was actually in college at St. Joe's. Me and Brandon both went to St. Joe's University. But the way I got started was it was my freshman year of college, and they needed a host for the talent show. They used to have this annual talent show every February. And, I was always the one joking with my friends and kind of funny online, but I never thought I could do it on stage. And my friends just kept it up. Like, they were like, come on, man, we really need somebody to host this year. We don't know who to choose. And I'm like, I'm funny with y'all. Like, I'm funny in conversation, but I can't just do this at a given point. And then eventually, like, I just caved in. And once I got on stage, it felt natural.
I love that.
Yeah, so I hosted that school talent show, and then basically I would finish class, get something to eat really quick, and then I would just go downtown to like Center City and just try to sneak in whatever open mic I could get in. Because at the time I'm 18.
Right.
And a lot of these open mics, they're 21 and plus. So what I would do was a lot of times a comedian that was hosting a mic would vouch for me just to get in to do my set, and then they would kick me out.
You got in and then they're like, how old are you before you could get to the bar, right?
Right, yeah.
Oh my God, that's really funny. I love that you had all your friends were like, no, this is meant for you. Don't you feel like you meet a lot of comedians who are just like, I've always wanted to do it, and I picked up the mic and you were like, I don't know about this, but everyone else was like, no, you're good at this. You could do it.
Yeah, like they saw something in me that I couldn't have seen at the time. And it's funny because I went to school for accounting at first, and then like once I got into comedy, I switched to marketing. But once I started doing comedy, I realized like this is what makes me happy. Like I'm like, if I spend, I don't know, the next 40 years just crunching numbers, I know I'm gonna be so unhappy in a cubicle. It was like I was just envisioning it, and I was like, I have to do something more personable. And comedy was just like the perfect fit.
Although you would have a really nice like health insurance, situation.
I know that is the one thing that I kind of envy from my friends with like 9 to 5s. I'm like, y'all could just go to the doctors whenever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, every day outside is just a risk with me.
We just manifest it. Please
Yeah.
keep me healthy for this month. I can't handle it. I love that. When did you move to New York?
I moved to New York 2015. I moved to New York September 2015. So it was like, I graduated, and once I finished school, because I was so tapped in with the Philly comedy scene, I didn't do any internships or anything when I was in college. It was just class and then going to shows. So when I graduated, my whole focus was how can I get to New York? But because I didn't really have any work experience or anything saved, like any money saved up, I stayed in Philly for a year. I ended up finding a job on Craigslist. It was some school agency. They were looking for like teachers aides, and I applied, and they called me within like 10 minutes. Like, this is how bad they needed somebody, and basically just hired me right on the spot. So I did that, and I worked in a high school in Philly for a year just to save up some money, and then the next school year I was out.
That's great. Gen Z doesn't know that we used to find jobs on Craigslist.
Right.
No one would even think about that today. And I'm like, no, I got lots of jobs on Craigslist in college, out of college. That's amazing. So you're in New York and you're working on some big things lately. I saw you made your Netflix debut on Shane Gillis's show. Tell us about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was crazy because so me and Shane, we came up in Philly together during that time period when I was around, like, around 2013, 2014.
Mhm.
And we always stayed in touch. Now he just moved to Austin last year, but up until that point, before he moved to Austin, he was in New York also. Me and him, we did so many shows together. I remember us doing, it used to be in Manayunk. It was like this ice cream spot called the Crazy Cow Cafe.
Okay.
It was right across the street from, like, I think this bar Kildare's. And this bar, like, in the attic, we would do comedy shows, but like it was a small venue that would pack out with like 10 or 15 people. So it was like me and Shane, the other comedians, used to be out there trying to get a crowd in, and there'd be times where we couldn't get anybody in, so the show would just have to cancel. So it was like we really came up together. So whenever he's reached out to me about like shooting a sketch with him or doing a podcast, I always try to make myself available just like as a friend. And I trust his judgment that like it's always going to be something good. But when he hit me up for tires, I just thought it was going to be another YouTube sketch. That's what's funny about that. I thought it was going to be another YouTube sketch or something for like his website or Patreon. And I shot my scenes in 2 days. I think I went out there like once on a Thursday, another time on a Monday. But when they hit me up for it, I told them I had to be out of there by 4:30. I was like, I have to be out by 4:30 because we shot it in Westchester, PA.
And you're like, this is some YouTube thing. Like, I have it hard out today, guys.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Right, yeah. We shot it in Westchester, PA, and I had shows in Manhattan that I didn't want to cancel. So I was like, look, I gotta be out by 4:30. I can't miss my shows. And so then I remember running into Shane a few months after we shot it, and I asked him, I was like, how did the footage come out? And he was like, oh, it's great. He was like, I'm actually in town doing reshoots now. I just sold it to Netflix. So when he said that, I'm thinking like I would have approached it totally different. Like I would have canceled my shows. I probably would have got a hotel, stayed out there. Cause like my whole mindset when I was shooting those scenes was I want to get out of here because I want to get back home so I could walk my dog before I go to my show. Like it was just not a priority to me at all.
Meanwhile, there's some PA who was like, thinks you're a famous movie star and was like, wow, like they get to like leave when they want.
Right. But even then, when he told me about the reshoots, I asked him, I was like, am I still in it? Because I'm like, I didn't get asked to do reshoots. And he was like, oh, no, no, your stuff is fine. But even then, you know how with TV works, I didn't know how much I would still be in there, like after the whole editing process and things like that. And then when I watched the whole episode, I was like actually blown away to see they showed me that much.
That's great. That what a glow up in your brain to be like, wait, I thought I was doing some sketch. I'm on Netflix.
Right.
This is something I can show my family, you know? Like
Right. Yeah. That's what's crazy about it. Like now, like I have a legit acting credit, substantial acting reel, and it's a credit that I mean a lot of people seen it for a good week or so. It was like the #1 show.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's cool to like, be out and be recognized by it when I just thought this was just gonna be something like just another thing. I'm sure you know too, that's how it is when you work in entertainment. Every time you think something is gonna blow up, it usually be the one thing you don't expect at all.
Yeah. The thing that you don't stress out over, I always say that. It's always like the audition you do one take for and you're like, I gotta get out of here. And then they're like,
Right.
you booked it. You're like, what did I book? What?
Right.
Was this before or after I saw you did Kevin Hart's series also, which is awesome.
Oh, that was much after. And that's was crazy about this whole journey with like how many years apart that's been. Like with Shane with Tires just came out this
Yeah.
past May, where the thing I did with Kevin Hart, I actually taped that in 2016.
Oh my God.
When I did that, I thought that would just change everything for me. Where it's like, no, it's still been a long journey, but along the way, it's definitely made me appreciate the whole process. It's helped me stay more grounded and more focused on comedy. But with the Kevin Hart thing, how I got that when I was in Philly, I used to hang around the clubs every weekend, like the Helium Comedy Club. Like I would do shows and open mics throughout the week, but on the weekends, I would try to get to the club early so I could ask the headliner, hey, is it okay if I do 5 minutes to open up the show?
Hmm.
So it was this guy named Spank Horton. He's one of Kevin Hart's openers, and he's also from Philly too. And so I got to the show early, and there was no other comedians there trying to do the guest spot.
Really?
Yeah, which I get, but a lot of comedians, they just don't do that because their mindset is always like, how can I get paid? And I just always was looking at it like, I already don't have any money. I could take a little bit more time to invest in myself. So I sat around that whole weekend and he put me on, like he let me do 5 minutes on, I think, nearly every show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I did great on all of those shows. So that was like January 2014. So at that time, like I'm still in St. Joe's. Then fast forward to end of 2015, I auditioned for a few MTV shows. I auditioned for like Wildin' Out. I auditioned for another show, didn't get it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just lock in and just focus on stand up. So then 2016 comes around. Spank, he just sends me a message online one day like, hey, send me one of your videos. I want to see if I could get you on a showcase. So I sent them a YouTube link, didn't know what the showcase was. And then a week later, a producer from Comedy Central emailed me and said, hey, Anthony, we're putting together a list of comedians for a show with Kevin Hart, and we want you on it. But we had to talk on the phone first. So when we talked on the phone, they asked me a few questions, and they asked me, was I ever on TV before? And I said no, and I thought that would hurt. I thought that would hurt my chances of getting it because I figured like, oh, they probably do want somebody with some momentum or a name. But they said that's perfect. They were looking to spotlight comedians that never been on TV. So if I would have got Wildin' Out or the other MTV show that I auditioned for, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So everything kind of like worked out. Whereas like I got to perform actual stand up on TV. I have this relationship now with Kevin Hart, and it all worked out. It all worked out how it was supposed to.
That's great. Well, you kind of gave us a spoiler before because you said you went to college with Brandon, but I
Yeah.
wanted to know how you got involved with the movie Plan B. You had a funny scene. I watched you're in the Lamaze class.
No, that was cool, but I mean, but even with going to school with Brandon, I remember we actually shot a short film together. We shot Murder 101, which I know Brandon submitted to like a bunch of like different film festivals and everything. And one that was my first time. Like I really appreciate Brandon like even giving me that experience because like that taught me a lot. Just seeing like how professionally that was done. Because a lot of times when you shoot things, like a lot of times, like especially like when you like shooting sketches with other comedians, they might have an idea of what they want to do, but it's just not like it's done that professionally. So it's like with Brandon, like just how he navigated all of the different scenes and just like I think the short film it might have been like 7 minutes, the final product, but everything was just treated so professionally, even down to like just having food for us.
Yeah, no, I'll jump in a little bit there. Really appreciate all the kind stuff. And it was awesome doing that short film with you. Kind of how that came to be. I wrote that in college for St. Joe's screenwriting short film class. And then once I graduated, I decided I would just shoot it. And I didn't really have money to pay anybody. Even the food that you mentioned, we got all of that for free, just reaching out to the local spots, saying we're filming a short film, and we got some donations from some places. But no one really got paid for that short film. It really came out great. And there was only three characters, and I was just looking for like the funniest people I knew. We went to college together, and you were a comedian. I always thought you were hilarious. I'm like, I'm gonna ask Anthony to do it, and you never really acted before, but I think it really came naturally, and you were super funny in that film. And then, even adding in a little bit more, you mentioned how many people saw Tires. I had so many people once that came out that texted me. They're like, "Oh, I saw the guy from your short film on Netflix,"
Wow.
and I was just like, "Wow, that's awesome."
Wow, that's crazy. That's so crazy. I would have never known that nobody got paid for that. Just sound like yeah, how great it was. But that shows like when you have a good vision, like as a leader, like you just had a great vision, like and people trusted in it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And yeah, hopefully it was similar on Plan B.
Yeah.
So did you audition for Plan B?
I mean, yeah, I still did submit something for it. But what was also cool about that too is that I got to act alongside another comedian.
Chanel.
Yeah, yeah, Chanel. I got to act alongside Chanel and that, and she was somebody that really close with. That we also came up in Philly together during the same time.
She's super funny. I used to do shows with her at Caroline's, RIP Caroline's. Brandon, you really brought together all the Philly comics together in one
Right.
scene.
That was funny because I was a fan of Chanel. I had never actually met her before, but once she auditioned, I texted Anthony, who I was already going to cast, and just said, "You know Chanel," and he did. And then he texted her, and I think that kind of made her want to do the film even more.
Did you have to study what Lamaze class was? Did you know what you were doing in that scene?
No, I definitely didn't know that was the name for it. I definitely did not. I thought it was childbirth. So I ended up learning something.
That's funny. I know. I'm curious. That day, I saw what was cut into the movie, but did you guys have like a full class?
I think we did a good amount. We did a good amount, but that whole scene was just cool. I got to work with some people that, I've watched growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool, which I wasn't expecting to see at all. Like, of course, like I knew I would see John,
Mhm.
being a star, but like to see Vernon Davis leading the class, that blew my mind for a few reasons. Because, just being a sports fan, I remember he was working as an analyst. It might have been on ESPN, but I remember him showcasing that he could cry on scene. Like he could cry like on command. And he did that.
On ESPN?
Yeah. So I do remember like him showcasing that, oh, this guy wants to be an actor. So to actually like see it like, oh, he's legit. He's legit. So yeah, that was really cool.
That's great. Anything cool you're working on right now that you want to talk about?
Mostly I started a podcast. I've been doing a podcast. It's called We Want More, where basically we talk about current events, random topics, and then every episode we review a movie or a TV show that's on Tubi.
Oh,
Yeah. And what made me start doing that is that I would see like, the clips of like certain Tubi movies go viral about like, and people would make fun of it because they might be missing something. It might be a shooting scene, but it's like the guns are like just the effects are just off, or the way people die, or like the script is just super silly. And I wanted to spotlight these movies because no matter, even if a movie is terrible, it still takes a lot to make a bad movie. So so that's what so I kind of wanted to spotlight that. Cause and also too, since we talking about people that don't have money, you could tell like these creators don't have the money. They don't have the funding from a production company or anything like that. But it's like they just came up with this idea and they just were able to upload it. So yeah, that's what I've been locked and focused on a lot lately, my podcast. But then also just trying to put together a tour. My goal is like, I want to shoot something soon, whether it be a special or something like that. So I'm just getting my hour together. Performing, I perform most nights throughout the week.
hmm.
Perform most nights throughout the week in Manhattan or Brooklyn, but I go on the road sometimes also too. And then another thing that I'm getting back in the process, once the weather drops a little bit more, I want to start doing virtual shows again.
Do you?
Yeah. The one thing I like about virtual shows is that it kind of strips you away from everything because you're at home performing virtually. You can't rely on crowd work, just material. And it'd be a good way for like people that want to see me, because it's certain cities where people support me online. I see people listen to the podcast, but it might only be two or three people in that city.
Yeah.
I can't fill out a comedy club there, but I could bring those people into my home to watch me. So that's something I want to get back into.
I love that. I have some PTSD from doing the virtual comedy shows. I'm not gonna lie.
No, no, definitely understandable. I had some good ones. But then I also had some where like, I was doing them for colleges. So I had some where it might be only two or three people show up. And because it's a college, I still got to do my time.
I did one for like a nonprofit, and there were like older people and who clearly, have been on Zoom like twice in their life. And like this woman was like chopping vegetables like on the camera,
Right.
like
Yeah.
camera on. And I'm like, and all these other people are talking about, they're like, who's the person cooking? Like, tell them to stop.
It's so funny because I definitely talk about that on stage. I talk about how when people don't like you on Zoom shows, they start doing stuff around the house. So it's like you'll hear pots and pans moving. I'm like,
I'm bombing.
yeah, why are you getting started on dinner in the middle of my set?
Yeah, I've actually got a pretty funny story I think Anthony will appreciate as someone from St. Joe's as well. This is probably a year or so ago. They reached out to me and asked if I would do like a virtual teaching kind of thing, virtual speaker for a film class. And I was just doing it virtually, but they said they were going to have the Forum Theater at St. Joe's totally filled up with students, and I was going to be projected up on the big screen, which sounded pretty cool. And I'm on Zoom. I can't really see who's in the session. So it's like a half hour long. I'm doing the entire thing. And then toward the end, they're like, does anyone have any questions? And they actually showed the theater and it was totally empty with just one person sitting in there. And I kind of just chuckled to myself. I thought it was so funny. And the clip actually is like on their YouTube. And couple months ago, I went back and rewatched it and forgot about that part. That's the funniest part of the entire thing. It's like one student in the entire
Wow.
huge movie theater.
Oh no. And you were probably like, I'm crushing it until this one moment where you're like, what?
Yeah, there might have been some more people that did actually join through the Zoom link, but there's one student actually showed up. It was funny. I
Yeah.
appreciated it.
That's really funny. I love that. And I'm sorry. But that one student, he's remembering this for the rest of
Right.
his life.
Right. That is, I will say that what I learned is that the people that actually do tune into that, they really want to be there. So they're never going to forget that.
If you're listening to that student, thanks for coming to the show.
Same with like a comedy show too. If you have two people in the audience, I always forget it, but they're going to be like, wow, this must be really hard for this person on stage. There's only two of us here. Like, can they actually do a show now? Like, they'll remember that forever. So, well, I love that. You guys are a great example of like, you never know where anyone's going in this industry. So, whoever you meet, whoever's got, passion to do it, like, stay friends, stay in touch, because it's really cool that you guys were like making like short films for $0 in college. And now you're making like, you're in a feature film that Brandon got to write and direct and has major stars in, and you're a part of it. Can't wait for the sequel, Brandon, right? Anthony, you're getting bumped up.
Yeah, or Anthony, if you ever want to make a Tubi movie.
Definitely.
Now I have to see these Tubi movies. Are they like Lifetime movies? Or like you like make fun of them?
Kinda like you'll watch something, you could tell they had the right idea, but they might not have had a person for continuity. So it's like the scene might be off, or they might do something where somebody might make a phone call, but you could see that the phone is still on the home screen.
Okay.
So or you could tell they don't have boom mics. The audio is like, so you watching it, it's like, all right, you got to keep turning the audio up and down. So it's little things like that. And what I do like, a lot of the movies I've been watching, they've been made out of Detroit. Is some actors, I mean, well, some of these directors, they'll make a movie and they'll have merch in it from the movie before they made. Yeah, so like one actor, I watched this one movie where the main character, she had on a shirt that was promoting the previous movie they put out.
Wow. Hey, you do
Yeah,
what you got to do, I guess. On
yeah,
a low budget, you got to do that. Well, that's great. Thanks for hanging out with us today and talking about Plan B and your experience. I wanted to know if you want to let the people know where they can find you and find your comedy.
yeah. You can find me on all social media platforms at All That and More. That's more with two O's. My podcast, We Want More, and I think that's it. Yeah, my podcast is on all platforms where you find your podcast, whether it be Apple, Spotify, YouTube. So yeah, you can find me there.
Okay. Well, we can't wait for the episode where you critique Plan B. I think that's what the world wants right now. Is it going to be on Tubi?
Maybe someday. It's gonna start off. It'll be like a video on demand and digital release. You could rent it Amazon, Apple, really wherever you rent or buy movies. But who knows? Maybe someday it'll end up on Tubi.
Hopefully you get a link or something, I don't know if you have to buy it if you're in the movie, but
No, it's funny because I've definitely been on a few things and I've streamed it illegally, but but definitely with this being the first movie, I'm gonna definitely have to support this.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thanks so much, Anthony. And that was the episode. We'll see you guys next time.